Hi, we're going to make a pinwheel block, and to start off with that we need to make some half square triangles. We're going to make a 6-inch finished pinwheel block, and you make 4 of those, and when you put those 4 together that will make a 12-inch finished quilt block for you. You just need to make one. You can make them all your pinwheels the same color, or you can use 2 different colors, or use 4 different colors. You'll use your background in every single one of them. You're going to cut your strips of fabric, the width of the fabric, 3 7/8 inch wide across the width of the fabric, and then on the background you will cut 8 3 7/8 inch squares. If you are using 4 colors for the other pinwheels, for your pinwheels, then you will cut 1 strip off of each fabric or each color, and then from each one of those colors you will cut 2 of the 3 7/8 inch squares. If you are making yours with 2 colors, you will need 4 squares of each color. So on the background, in order to make my half square triangles, and I'm hoping this is in where you can see it, I just lay a ruler and I use a pencil and I draw a diagonal line from corner to corner on one side. And then so that I know exactly where the 1/4 inch is, I just use the ruler to go and mark the 1/4 inch, and I just line it up over on that, and I do another pencil mark. They don't have to be dark, you just make them light. I flip it around so I can do the other, and then it's a 1/4 inch away from the that center line. So I've got my markings here on the back of this square. You're going to do that on all your background squares, and then when you stitch, you're going to be stitching on the outside lines. To make a scant 1/4 inch, just stitch right inside it, about the distance of a thread. I mean, it's just on the inside of that. After you sew your block or your patch here, you're going to cut it on the center line, and then that will give you 2 pinwheels, or 2 half square triangles for each square that you do. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make all of those, and then we'll get back on the next step. I've got all of them marked and I'm getting ready to start sewing, and I just lay the background square on top of the colored fabric, and I'm going to chain piece these, but you just stitch it and I'm just going to go and add another one right behind it and get all of these stitched up. The particular fabric I have, I'm not needing to watch directionals, so that's one thing that if you have something you might need to do, you just have to try to watch it, and it's hard, especially beginning to do all that. But as you become more experienced, you might be able to look at it and figure out, oh, it needs to be turned this way for that. So you can see me turn around. Like if I was chain piecing, I keep going, but when I get down to the end, I'll just lift it up, spin it around, and then I'm just going to go back on the other side. That will help to save thread, and it just keeps everything together. Let me get all these sewn, and then I'm going to take it over and I'll cut them apart and press them open and show you the next step. Okay, so I have cut them apart and pressed them. I pressed everything going to the dark, and I've also squared everything up. I was going to show you how to square this one. You see these little points there? That's the dog ears. You need to cut that off and square this up to 3.5 inches. This is a Lori Holt Cute Cuts 3.5-inch trimmer. This particular one, I got it in a set, so it had several different sizes in it, but it's got this blue line running around the outside. That's your 1/4-inch seam, so you can square it up. It's got all these markings on there, so I'm going to use that diagonal line and square it up here with my piecing. And so you'll just square that up, and you want to make sure you've got all of it to where it's going out to the outside edges, and then you're going to trim off the extra part. So you just line all that up. You'll trim 2 sides, and then you'll pick it up and flip it, or if you happen to have a rotating one, you can do that, and then you'll trim the other 2 sides. You'll trim the other 2 sides, and then that will result in the square. So it's 3.5 inches. The dog ears get in the way when you try to go and sew them together. I always look at my pattern, and it tells you to lay it out like this. So you're going to have 1/2 going down this way and the other half going up this way. And then when you sew them together, you'll take the top 2 and you're going to fold it over, and you're going to match up your seams down here at the bottom. And just like on the 9 patch, you can kind of push them together and they'll get in there. You'll lock that at both ends. And then you're going to sew your seam here. And that will make all of them look like this when it's done. So then they'll all be sewn together like that. And then you'll go press your seam to the dark. And then you're going to lay them out, and I'll show you how you lay that out. So I'm going to stitch all these up for you, and then we'll show you how to lay them out for the next step. Okay, so I've got them all stitched. They're all laying out. So I'm going to take the top 2, and I'm going to flip them like that, and that'll make my pinwheel. It's going to have all the seams going in the opposite directions. And so I'll do that to all of them here. Let me get these other 2 here done. So they're all flipped. And then you're going to just go and sew. You're going to pull this one over like that and stitch that one. And you're going to be matching your seams at this intersection here. I want to point out on this that it makes an X. And you can, let me get my hand out of the way. It makes an X. And then when you stitch, you want to stitch right across that X right there. That's the seam for your half square triangle and the seam where you sewed them together. So you want to hit that point right there at the intersection of that. And when you do that, on the front side, you're going to have a sharp point. So anytime you see X's, you always want to try to go and hit those X's. So I'll stitch these up. And then after you stitch them, you can check your sizes. They should measure 6.5 inches. And then we'll lay it out for the 4 to be sewn together. And we'll get back and do that. Okay, I've got them all stitched and pressed. I want to show you a trick here on the back. You can open this seam up here to make like a little pinwheel. And you can tell which one to do. You've got 4 seams right here. That one's going this way, that one's going that way, that one's going to the right, and that. So you can see 3 of them are already kind of like spinning. This one is not. So this is going to be the one that needs to come down. And you'll come over here where your seam is, and you'll pop it just a bit, and it's going to open up the seam. It's kind of hard. Let me do this, but you'll go pop it open, and it makes a little pinwheel here on the back. Let me do that, and then I'll show it to you. It's kind of hard to see the pinwheel here, but there's a little pinwheel there. Let me get it here. There. There's a little pinwheel that's kind of formed. If the colors were a little bit darker, you might could see it better, but it'll help to make your block lie a little bit flatter whenever they're all pressed, and you won't have it popping up or anything, kind of like these do over here. These kind of pop up a little bit. So it will help to make the block lie flatter on that. And this one I could go and re-sew this one because it's off just a little bit in the center there. It's kind of hard for you to see. But when it's all quilted and everything, that one's not going to stand out. I don't spend a lot of time ripping everything out. You strive to do the very best that you can. But, and it's supposed to be fun. You don't want to spend all your time ripping everything out. And when this is in a quilt, if you can't see that it's off when you're like 3 feet away from it, don't bother spending all your time ripping it out. Because no one's going to spot it, especially when you've got a whole quilt and you've got all these blocks that are going on in there. They're not going to spot one little thing like that. So just strive to do the best, and the more and more that you sew and you do the piecing, you're going to get better at it, and that way it'll be more enjoyable. So you're going to lay these out. You'll have one up here, one down underneath it, one here, and one there. So that's going to be the layout for the two, and then you're just going to fold it over like that. Stitch your seams on this side. You're going to match here, and then after those are pressed, and it doesn't make any difference which way you press them. You want this one maybe to go to that way and that one go that way, and then you're going to take it and you're going to flip it up like this on your rows, and you'll sew this final seam here, and that'll put all 4 of them together for you. So I'll do that, and I'll show you the final block when I'm all done. Okay, here's my final block. You can see it all came out good here in the center, and I've also flipped everything here on the back. So I've got a pinwheel here at the center, and like I said, it's this seam, this one, and this one, and you can look at them and see which direction they go and which one you had to flip. I had to flip this one, so there'll be one that's out of the way. You can do this on the back of pinwheels and 4 patches. If you're doing a pinwheel, you're going to get a little pinwheel there. If you're doing 4 patches, you're going to get a 4 patch. The finished block is going to measure, this will measure 12.5 inches. When it's sewn into your quilt, it's going to be 12 inches.